Hey, it's Doug from Rise Above Performance Training, and today I have 5 training strategies to help prevent knee injuries. Let's check them out. So the first strategy you want to implement is mobility, especially of the joints above, like the hip, and below, like the ankle of the knee. So let's say the ankle does not have great range of motion. It doesn't glide forward very far. The next joint that's going to take the brunt of that is going to be the knee. Likewise, the hip, if you can't get low, what's going to happen? The hip's going to stop, and then all that force is going to go through that knee and collapse the knee and potentially injure it. So we want to make sure both the ankle and the hips have sufficient mobility. Great way to get the ankles mobile is with ankle glides, and you can use something like a post for guidance. So I'm going to have my foot fairly close to the post, and all I'm going to do is glide and see if I can touch. Then I'm going to back up just a little bit, glide again, I'm still touching, and just keep going until I can't, and then see if I can get further and further. So I want to keep my heel down and just glide forward. I can lift the other foot off the ground if I want to. And I just want to work on just getting that shin angle a little bit deeper so that way I have sufficient mobility in the ankle. Another way to do that is with the traditional calf raise. So these aren't just for glam, these are also for mobility. So you can have your toes here, drop down as low as you can, and you want to get up as high as you can towards the big toe. You can do this two-footed, and you can also do this single-footed. Now for hip mobility, there's a lot of ways to do hip mobility. One is just, doing the traditional squat, pushing the knees out. You can even add your elbows, pushing out, standing up, working the hips to get out and just getting mobile that way. Other ways, runner's lunges, so I can tuck my hip underneath and sink and push out. I'm pushing out against this leg too, so I'm just kind of opening up the hips and also dropping down so I stretch out this hip flexor. A lot of time the hip flexor will cause a little bit of inhibition in hip movement. Lastly, internal rotation or bringing the hip in is usually a limiting factor for a lot of athletes. A lot of athletes can go out okay, but inward is a little bit tough. And if we're tight here, and it doesn't allow the hip to go in, then the knee will collapse a lot, and that can cause some injuries. So a good way to do that is just by doing seated internal rotation, where I have my hands behind me for support, my feet a little bit wide, and I'm going to drop down and back, and then I can alternate. One side's usually going to be a little bit different than the other. A lot of sports like soccer, one leg will be very good at internal rotation and one leg will be good at external rotation going the other way, just because of the nature of the sport where you're doing a lot of things on one leg, pivoting on one, and then moving on another. If you want a little more advanced version and kind of combining both the squat and the internal rotation, you can do it from a squat position. So we can set up in a squat position and then bring my knee inward, set up, bring my knee inward, and then reset. That's a little more advanced, but try those out and then do that mobility. A great way to do this is for your warm-up. So do about 5 minutes of that mobility. As you can see there, I got pretty loose just doing those few minutes there, and then I'm ready to work out. The second training strategy is balance. Now balance is going to work the leg muscles in an isometric way, which is going to build endurance, but also activate the muscles around the knee for stability. Simply started, can you stand on one leg? So I'm going to bend this knee, keep my foot down, especially the big toe and the medial arch, and can I lift this other leg and stand? Can I raise the knee and stand? Can I do it the same on the other side? The answer for me, no. This leg is not as good, but I do it anyway. And you can feel the muscles of the ankle even working as well. So that's a good place to start. When you get good with that, you can add little pulses, so mini squats. So I'm going to stand on my leg, and I'm just going to drop a little bit, and then come up. So I'm working mini squats around there, and I'll do that on both sides. Adding rotation. So this might look dangerous, but in a sporting situation, when you land and turn, you got to have a little bit of that training with the turning to be able to accommodate that force. So I'm going to stand and I'm just going to add a little torque or a little turn in that knee and hip, and then train that as I do it. And that way when I get on the field, I'm able to do that as well. I'm not aggressive with it. It's just very light, and then I can go more and more. Adding an unstable surface helps too. So I can stand on one leg here. I like to have a little bit of support so I'm not all over the place, but I'm gonna see if I can stand, and I'll just use 2 fingers every once in a while and stand here, and I can add a little bit of rotation every once in a while. And I want to do my best to stay over the center of the foot. You don't want to be all over the place trying to catch the balance. Like, hey, look, I can't hold, I'm good, I don't have to hold on. But if you're all over the place, that's not great, so just use 2 fingers. Also, if you don't have one of these, a band is great. So I'm going to put one leg in a band just above the knee. And I'm going to get a little bit of tension. I'm going to bend and hold, and it's going to pull my leg around. I'm going to try to keep that knee inward and not let it pull around, try to keep it lined up with my foot, and I'm just working the balance that way. And I can also do this at different angles, you know, facing forward, back, side, and I usually do these for time. 30 seconds is sufficient. The third training strategy is learning how to land properly, and we do this through hops. So just starting off with, you can do basic hops. And when you land, you want to keep your knees out without collapsing. So when we jump, we don't collapse. And when we land, we don't collapse. So just making sure that we can move our ankles, keeping our knees out over our toes. Jump rope would be a good way to do it. And as you progress, you can add little things like small steps. So we do on-off hops a lot where we jump up, drop down, jump up, drop down. We usually start slow and then we move our way up. And we can also raise this up a little bit too, but again, we're not looking for collapsing of the knees. The other thing is also learning how to land from a bigger height. So let's say you jump in basketball or soccer, we want to make sure that we can land properly so our knee doesn't collapse and also take the brunt causing an injury. So we can stand at a little bit higher level, arms up, step foot, drop, land in an athletic position, and then that way we're absorbing force, keeping our knees in line, not collapsing, and teaching our body how to land. And there's tons of variations and progressions you can do. You can land and then jump either sideways or forward, but try those basic ones of hopping, jump rope, on-off hops, and then landing from a small box, and then you can add the next progressions. The fourth strategy for injury prevention for the knees is strength, but in particular, unilateral or single leg strength. In my opinion, every single program you do should have single leg work in it. It's probably more important than arguably the 2-legged strength. So if you're just doing squats, barbell squats, and deadlifts, that's great, but if you're not doing single leg stuff, you're doing a little bit of a disservice because both legs are not going to be the same, and most sports are going to be on one leg at a time, even legs doing different things at the same time. So please train single leg. It could be anything. Simple things like hip bridges where you're flat, up, and then controlling down. These are a great warm-up, great mobility, but also a good way to strengthen the hamstrings and the glutes. Things like step-ups, chest ups, shoulders down, and I'm pushing through the box, standing up nice and tall, and I'm also controlling down. So I'm always slowing my body down, decelerating with these muscles, so I'm not going fast. I want to get full extension and good control as I do this movement. Split squats on a bench or TRX. You can have your foot up on here, flat foot or toe up, and we're just dropping down and then coming up. Again, I'm keeping alignment, decelerating, and coming up. If you want a good burn on leg day, add some dumbbells with that one, and you'll feel your legs the next day guaranteed. One of my favorites, the single leg RDL. You can use a barbell, 2 dumbbells, kettlebell, 1 kettlebell. I'm gonna stand on one leg, and like I said, this one's my favorite because it works that balance component we talked about earlier. So I'm keeping my foot flat, I'm reaching out long, and then driving up. And this one puts a lot more emphasis on the hips and not so much on the knee. So if you have knee issues already, this one's a great one because you can still do it because you're not bending a lot. So please add single leg exercises to your workouts. And our last component for knee injury prevention strategies is doing dynamic work, and appropriate dynamic work. So making sure that you progress properly. So dynamic work could be things like we talked about earlier, simple hopping, jump rope, box jump, if you have access to sleds, or if you have access to prowlers, pushing those. But you also want to make sure that you're ready for that. So you don't grab the hugest box you can find and do a jump. So what we like to do is, jump rope, some agility with hurdles or hopping, or even speed skater hops, things like that. A lot of kettlebell swings. So just dynamic movement, because sports is dynamic, and you want to make sure you can maintain alignment, have good mobility and range of motion when you're doing those dynamic exercises, because a lot can happen when things get fast. A lot of things can collapse and not work right. So again, make it progressive for yourself and the athlete, and then you'll be successful. So I want to thank you for watching these 5 strategies. If you liked it, please hit the like button down below. Also consider subscribing, as we put a few videos out every month. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.